Hi, my name is Jory Brigham. I'm going to do a little tutorial on how to do coving on a table saw. This particular one, I want to do a drawer face for a side table here that I'm working on. Coving is a lot of fun because it really gives us the ability to make a piece unique. This particular one, I want to create a pole, but I want that pole to be more than just a useful integral part of this. I want it to be something cool to look at, and I want it to tie in with other lines in this. So I'm going to take you through it. Ultimately, we want to end up with something like this. Now, I don't know if we're going to end up exact like this, and that's the fun part of it, that depending on the angles we go with, so many variables, each one turns out completely different. And I'm hoping that you can look at that as a fun challenge rather than scary. Now, when coving, it all comes down to the auxiliary fence. We attach this to the fence of the table saw, and this allows us to run the piece through, and we utilize the radius of the blade, and it gives us that consistent, controlled cut. Now, we're going to want to cut the blank at an angle, which allows us to put this surface on the table and really get a little bit more of an aggressive coving in there. If we have this cut on the bevel, it's going to allow us to put a little bit more of an angle when we run this on the table. Now, when you come down here, you can see by putting the blade at bevel, it really allows us to get this elliptical shape, which then allows us to have a little bit more to pull onto for that pull. Once you find about that angle that you want, and that's basically by lining this up with the blade, you can really see that. You know, you're gonna have to adjust it a little bit, you're gonna have to tweak it, depending on what you have sketched out here. By tweaking the angle, by tweaking the fence up and down, it's gonna really give us that shape a little bit more. Now, once we have what we want, you're gonna see that when we run this through like this, that's gonna shape this out. And once you have that, lower it all the way down, start with about a 1/16 and keep on going a little bit until you have that desired shape right there. So once I have my cove, I usually cut it along here with the bandsaw. That just lightens it up a little bit, less I have to cut later on. At this point, we have this blank, we can do whatever we want. I like to achieve something a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more of a focal point, and I do a taper. Now, the way I achieve this is I use a carriage, and the carriage allows me to put it in at an angle into the blade. We use the same principles as we did before, it's just different that we're using a carriage. The carriage here is pretty basic, not much to it. What the carriage does is it allows me to have a little bit more stability when I put it against that auxiliary fence. And it gives me something to clamp to. So now I'm able to have a consistent pass through. Now, like the other ones, we really have to figure out what that bevel of the blade is going to be. That affects us very much. If it's beveled a little sharper, you're going to see a more aggressive line here. If it's a little bit more straight up and down, it'll just fade very subtly into this other cove here. You're going to want to use your eye, line it up, see about where it's going to line up. As you can see, that's going to go too far in. And remember, you can change this as you go. So the first pass, you're not necessarily married to that. And I'm just going to go for it and see what we end up with. I'm at a pretty good trajectory here. I'm actually probably gonna wanna lower this a little bit because it's a little bit too sharp, because I do wanna meet up with that pull. So as you can see, I achieved a pretty strong line right there. I think I'm gonna wanna settle it down a little bit. We want it to be interesting looking, but not too crazy. So I'm gonna lose the carriage, and we're gonna make a couple little coves, some just straight ones right down there to kind of complement everything else. So now I got about what I want here. Some nice simple coving down there to offset this taper. Now the next step is going to be shaping this by hand. I really want the look of this to kind of just flow in there really nicely. Looking a little organic, a little bit like a wave. And for that, I'm just going to use a grinding wheel, a cut saw. So now I really want to thin this out a little bit, lighten it up, and I'm just going to put a little chamfer on that face of it. I find that when I cut a little facet on the face, it really shows up all these lines and how they come together. So I'm just going to cut that on the chop saw just to finish it off. So I sanded it up, cut that facet, clean this up, and we got ourselves a drawer front. Now for a piece like this, I think it just adds so much to it. It's a focal point, and I just love how this design just fades right into the pull. Once we oil that thing up, put it in there, I think it'll look pretty good.